Good afternoon, and thank you for coming to the Simsbury Parade and staying for the Memorial Day ceremony. My name is Joe Haney of the Veterans of Foreign Wars Metacomet Post 1926 here in Simsbury. On behalf of both the American Legion Post 84 and the Veterans of Foreign War Post 1926, it is my honor to be the Master of Ceremonies for this 106th observation of Memorial Day by Veterans of Simsbury. Honoring all deceased veterans, over 1,730 flags were placed on the veterans' graves in all the cemeteries by veterans and scouts from Troop 76, Troop 175, and Troop 1175. At this time, I'd like to call upon Reverend Gene Ott of Simsbury United Methodist Church to give us opening prayer. Reverend Ott.
Good afternoon. 80 years ago in 1942, life-altering battles and decisions were happening around the globe during a conflict that touched every corner of Earth. Many of these names have become legendary. El Alamein, Midway, Doolittle, Torch, Guadalcanal, Stalingrad. But there were smaller moments as well. And today we gather to remember the smaller moments in history. Would you pray with me? Especially the men and women who died in service to this country so that all might be free. Some fought for ideals and the bigger picture, but many, if not most, fought for their buddies, brothers, or sisters. And today we remember them all. Those who fought and died in battles said to have changed the world, and those who fought in forgotten theaters and remote battlefields where no one remembers their valor or names. To borrow from the words of Abraham Lincoln, in a larger sense, we cannot dedicate, we cannot consecrate, and we cannot hallow this day. The brave men and women who struggled and died have consecrated it far above our poor power to add or detract. So let us use this day, Almighty God, to remember and honor their memory for generations to come, across this land and from sea to sea, and give thanks for their sacrifice so that we and many others around the globe might live lives of freedom. Amen.
Thank you, Reverend Ott. I'd like to recognize our local and state political leaders who have joined us today. Town Manager Maria Capriola, First Selectman, the Honorable Wendy Mack, the Selectman, Chris Kelly, Amber Abule, Sean Askham, Eric Wellman, Heather Getz, and Chris Peterson. Along with them, we have State Representative, the Honorable John Hampton. And in the parade, we had Congresswoman Johanna Hayes marched, and Senator the Honorable Chris Murphy has marched as well. When the memorial was being built, the Simsbury Fire Department donated the flagpole that you see behind me. The department committed to supply the memorial with a new flag every year on Memorial Day. Today we have from the Simsbury Fire Department, Chris Travato, who will present a new flag to John Fox, who is on the Simsbury Veterans Memorial Committee, and together they will raise the flag to fly over the memorial for the next year. As the flag is being raised, Dave Moore will sing the National Anthem. All who are able, please rise.
Oh, say, can you see by the dawn's early light what so proudly we hailed at the twilight's last gleaming, whose broad stripes and bright stars through the perilous fight o'er the ramparts we watched were so gallantly streaming, and the rocket's red glare, the bombs bursting in air, gave proof through the night that our flag was still there. Oh, say, does that star-spangled banner yet wave o'er the land of the free and the home of the brave?
You can be seated. At this time, I'd like to call First Selectman Wendy Mack to the podium to offer a welcome.
Thanks, Joe. Hey, Simsbury. I want to start by saying hi to everybody who's here today celebrating with us this Memorial Day 2022. As your first selectman, it's an honor for me to stand here in front of this Veterans Memorial to welcome all of you. Thank you to the VFW and American Legion for inviting us to participate in this special tradition. I want to introduce to my fellow selectmen and town people who are here today that walked with us. Deputy First Selectman Amber Abuel is here. Selectman Heather Getz. Selectman Eric Wellman, and our town manager Maria Capriola. And I did see past First Selectwoman Anita Miller out there in the crowd, so welcome. As public servants, we have the utmost respect and admiration for all of you who have served our country. The last few years have been challenging for many of us across this country. The pandemic, news of war, mass shootings, weather disasters, the economy, it goes on. But today, we are here to focus on and remember all those who gave their lives for us to protect our freedom, our country, and our future, the ultimate selfless act of service any person can make. It's important to not only remember and honor those who have served, but to make sure future generations know about the men and women who sacrificed themselves for our democracy in wars that occurred before their time. As we are seeing today, here and around the world, democracy can easily disappear if not for the brave men and women who stand up for freedom. There is a bright spot, though, and that is that we are all here together with our friends and families on this beautiful spring day in May. We are united in both mourning and celebration for those who have served in the U.S. Armed Forces and to the families they left behind. To close, I want to share one last thought. My dad, Irv Germain, he would be surprised that I'm up here, was in the Army and in Europe during World War II. He was one of the lucky ones who came home, married, and raised a family of 5, followed by grandchildren and hopefully some great-grandkids. Had he not come home, I wouldn't be here today. So to those who didn't make it back to their families and to their families that will never be, I want to thank you again for giving your lives for us here at home. And thank you all for letting me speak today.
Thank you, First Selectman Wendy Mack. At this time, I'm going to ask Justine Ginsburg of Resilience Grow Here to offer her reflections on Memorial Day.
Thank you to the Simsbury VFW and the American Legion for inviting me here to speak to you all today on this important occasion. Memorial Day is a day that as Americans we have held dear for over a century. As a day we pay tribute to the brave men and women who sacrifice the comforts of a civilian life, the security and safety of their homes, to fulfill a greater purpose in serving our country. A higher purpose of safeguarding the liberties and freedoms that we all hold dear, and the idea of the America that still exists in all of our hearts. There is a saying that service and freedom isn't for free, and this is undoubtedly true. The servicemen and women of the United States Armed Forces are a testament to this fact. War, for those who have served know, is not clean. While the flags of victory may fly overhead, there are always losses. While we know that this comes with the job of service, it doesn't make this reality any less poignant. These people that gave their all were not just soldiers. They were our friends, our brothers, our sisters, our family. They remain an empty seat at our dinner table. But while their story ends, we don't forget them. And today, of all days especially, we remember them. And in remembering them, we remember their courage and their sacrifice for our freedom today. Our veterans and their families show courage, valor, and endurance in the face of at times unimaginable hardship and loss. The wounds and losses of service are not always played out on the battlefield, but they too often are reflected in the invisible wounds of service when a veteran returns home. The effects of PTS and moral injury on those who have served are real and devastating, and today we must also stop and reflect and remember those who lost their own private battle with the mental health wounds of service. As your local health department, Farmington Valley understands the impact of loss and personal challenges can have on our community. The last 2 years of a global pandemic has tested every one of us in ways we could never have foreseen. Modern life is even more complex than ever. Demands on families and communities seem never ending. With the live minute-by-minute news feed of global risks, political unrest, and unspeakable acts of violence that shatter the innocence of our community. Mental health affects everyone. No race, town, or economic circumstance is exempt from risk. In 2015, the Farmington Valley Health District took a bold step into breaking the silence that surrounds mental health struggles by developing a program that specifically focused on veterans' mental health. We are all aware of the sobering 22-a-day veteran suicide statistic, and Farmington Valley wanted to begin to tackle the risk factors that made our veterans and their families more vulnerable. With funding from the Movember Foundation, we began to tackle the lack of community understanding of the invisible wounds of service and the mental health impacts on our heroes and their loved ones, and Resilience Grows Here was born. Using the public health approach on focusing on prevention, we use QPR suicide prevention, mental health first aid, to teach our veterans and their families and to try to draw out the protective aspects that they have developed during their service so that we can build upon those in the communities to which they return. Over the past 7 years, RGH has had the honor of working with thousands of veterans, active service members, and their families in our communities. There are so many lessons that we can learn from the resilience of these special humans. Some call it grit, others call it weathering the storm. But it is clearly a mindset that exists in those who have served our country. Resilience is certainly a popular concept right now. We often talk about it, about building resilient communities and raising resilient children and having resilient schools. But we most certainly find that resilience is applicable when we talk about our veterans and their families. Resilience is not a statement of the toughness of your personality. Resilient people can feel broken and defeated. Resilience is multidimensional and looks different for everyone. But one of the important keys to beginning to tackle the overwhelming mental health challenges our population is facing is to focus on ways to teach our resilience, our communities to be resilient and to build their own personal toolboxes so that we can focus on what we can achieve rather than what we cannot. Learning to accept that while some people seem blessed with a natural resilience, the ability to rebound from adversity, it is a skill that can be taught and grown to those that feel they are struggling. Today, I would like to focus on what our veterans teach us about resilience. Our veterans teach us that resilience is sometimes developed when facing adversity. Think about our heroes in battle, suffering the devastating loss of friends, having to gather their inner strength and to get back up and face the battle, to complete the mission, to carry on. Resilience can be taking a moment to cry and fall to your knees in despair. But it's about gathering your inner strength and walking back to the challenge, knowing that sometimes showing up is the most important step you can take. Veterans teach us that vulnerability is strength. There is nothing weak about being vulnerable. In fact, it takes enormous courage to allow others to see the most vulnerable aspects of yourself. Many of our Resilience Grows Here spokesmen for mental health are veterans who have had the strength to share their darkest moments with an audience. Their ability to be vulnerable allows others the opportunity to feel seen and not alone. Openly sharing our failings and challenges and pain is humbling, but most importantly, it is at that moment where we are most open to growth. We all hold deep, secret spaces of fear and weakness, and in having the courage to share your struggles, you give permission to others around you to do the same. Veterans teach us that relationships matter. Connection is key. Veterans return to communities and not to programs. Human connection and the ability to share and support one another through the struggles of life are key to resilient people. Our veterans show us this all the time. The battle buddy exists for a reason, because nobody understands a veteran better than a veteran. And organizations like the VFW, the American Legion, and Resilience Grows Here allow opportunities for these important connections to grow. Fostering connection and validation through relationships is fuel for resilience. When we stop and find the time for truly seeing another person, for lifting others up with connection and purpose, we banish isolation and loneliness. Our veterans teach us to remain realistic. Healing doesn't happen overnight. Adversity and problems don't just vanish because we want them to. Recognizing that there is a path to healing and growth and recovery, and that every step is important. Setting realistic and achievable expectations for yourself allow you the space to grow and develop the skills you need to overcome adversity. Understanding, and sometimes we take steps backwards before we can move forwards, is important to building our ability to keep stepping up, despite the setbacks, despite slow progress. And most importantly, our veterans teach us to ask for help. Knowing when you need help is about strength. Understanding that we do not travel this path of life alone, and that in asking for help, it is about self-awareness and asking for what you need to heal and grow. Whether help is sharing your burden with a friend, seeking medical treatment, confiding in your spiritual leader, or asking for support at work or at home. Asking for help gives others around you an opportunity to help and support you as you need them to. It's about having your needs met. As our job as a community is to create environments that draw upon the resilient strengths of our veterans and to use them to help to grow the same strengths in our schools, towns, and workplaces. We need to destigmatize the mental health challenges faced by all of us at different times in our lives and to normalize the healthy conversations we each need to have about our own personal struggles and needs. So as we remember the fallen today, let us also remember their resilience, that those who have served our country have shown in their duty, and let us harness these lessons so that we too can build our communities to not only hold and value the mental health of its members, but communities that work hard to remove stigma for those brave enough to ask for help. Connect with each other, for connection is the antidote to isolation and loneliness. Thank you.
Thank you, Justine. On this Memorial Day, we have in one place the names of the Simsbury residents who lost their lives in service to this country during a major war or conflict, in keeping with the meaning of Memorial Day, to honor those who have made the ultimate sacrifice in service to this country. We will read the 98 names whose names are on the columns behind me. At this time, I'd like to call up Len Lanza, Bruce Elliott, and John Fox, all veterans from Simsbury.
Thank you, Joe. As Joe said, on the columns behind us, we have inscribed the 98 names of those who died in service to their country. We have them listed by periods of conflict, of course. I'll begin by reading the names from the Revolutionary War. You will find, as I'm reading through the names, that I repeat the last names, some family names, several times. It's not because I'm repeating names that I've already read. It's because there are several members of several families that served during the Revolutionary War and lost their lives. The names are listed by date of death. That's why they don't fall in one sequence. Elijah Phelps, Carmi Higley, Thomas Holcomb, John Brown, Daniel Moses, Jonathan Pettibone, Samuel Pettibone, Jesse Cossette, Seth Case, Joseph Cornish, Oliver Humphrey, Richard Humphrey, Jehiel Bidwell, Erastus Humphrey, Roger Cossette, Thomas Wright, Elihu Humphrey, Jonathan Butoff, Uriah Pease, Josiah Clark, Benjamin Brewer, John Garrett, Josiah Higley, Daniel Barber, Jededish Holcomb, Zechariah Prince, Elijah Humphrey, Lemuel Colton, John Fletcher, Abel Forward, Dudley Hayes, George Merrill, and Joseph Moore. I will be reading the names from panel 2, which represents the Civil War, the period 1861 to 1865. Trowbridge Prindle, Elisha Cleveland, Dwayne Brown, Edward Gorman, Joseph Toy, John Kilburn, Lucius Holcomb, Oliver Case, James Grugan, Orville Wilson, Miles Shepard, Thomas Talmadge, Samuel Taylor, Lucius Marks, Edward Prindle, Leroy Tuller, Walton Goddard, Hosea Case, Charles Tensellant, George Shepard, John Jones, Curtis Bacon, Orlando Bridgman, John Meal, Robert Ballantyne, James Wells, Richard Sizer, Thomas Andreas, Christopher Johnson, Felix Maine, Charles Hudson, William Johnson, Albert Kahn, William Mahill, William Jackson, James McKinney, and Gustavus Stalspelt.
I'm honored to be reading the names that were reflect World War I through the present, the deaths during service. World War I, Joseph Tomalonis Jr., Jeremiah Leahy, David Galloway, Frederick Weed, George Hall. World War II, Joe Dombrowski, Merwin Chagnon, Harrison Potoski, Frank Strider, Clifton Burno, Silvio Salvatore, Carlton Sawyer, Amy Voiland, Gordon Tetrault, Robert Condon, Leon Hoppy, Arthur Sonaccia, David Spatcher Jr., Russell Cable, John Stevenson, Isidore Zarnowski, Roland Levine, and from the Korean War, Leon Moran and and Howard Higley. The Vietnam War, William Markarian, Richard Keithline, Arthur Smith. And the Global War on Terror, Felix Del Greco Jr. I want to mention just briefly that there were 29 names that I just read. 8 of those individuals are buried in Terriffill. And they were especially recognized at the service there this morning. There were Boy Scouts standing next to those 8 graves, and it was very, it was touching. So 8 of the 22, or of the 29 are Terriffill guys. moving on, we're going to take a minute and read together the poem that is on the fourth column behind me, the one that has the American flag on it. Below it, there's a poem that's called, the poem in total is called For the Fallen, and it was written by the English poet Lawrence Binyon in 1914. For those of you who actually received a copy of the program as you came into the seating area today, this thing is on the back of the program. So I ask you to join me in a unison reading of this stanza. Again, this stanza is on the column in addition to the American flag. Beginning now, they shall grow not old, as we who are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. Going down with the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. We will remember them. Please join me in a moment of silence to honor all who have served in the American military, those who came home and those who did not. Thank you.
Thank you, Lynn, John, and Bruce. Now we'll have, excuse me. Now we're going to have two members of the BSA. Sorry. Apologize for that. We're going to have two members from Troop 76 who will offer us some more information about two of those names upon the walls or on the columns. Those are Harper Wetham, who will read more about Leon Moran Francis Jr., and Kevin McElliott, who will read about Felix Del Greco. First is Harper.
Major Leon Francis Moran Jr. was born on June 15, 1915, in Hartford, Connecticut. He was the son of Leon Ferdinand Moran and Rosamond Moran. He was a decorated U.S. Army veteran of World War II. In Korea, he was a member of Headquarters Company, 89th Medium Tank Battalion, 25th Infantry Division. While supporting the 24th Infantry Division, he was listed as missing in action on November 27, 1950. Later, it was determined that he was killed fighting with the Chinese Communist forces in North Korea at the age of 45. His remains were never recovered. He is now memorialized on the Courts of the Missing at the National Memorial Cemetery of the Pacific in Honolulu, Hawaii. For his leadership and valor, Major Moran was awarded the Air Medal, the Purple Heart, the Korean Service Medal, the United Nations Service Medal, the Republic of Korea War Service Medal, and the World War II Victory Medal, to name a few.
Thank you, Harper. Now, Kevin.
Sergeant Felix M. Del Greco Jr. was born on July 18, 1981, to Felix M. Del Greco Sr. and Claire Del Greco. He was a lifelong resident of Simsbury. Sergeant Del Greco was a member of Simsbury High's class of 1999, and he also was an Eagle Scout from Troop 76. While still a student at Simsbury High, he enlisted into the Connecticut Army National Guard in March of 1999, where he joined Headquarters Company 242nd Engineer Battalion and shipped to basic training in June of 1999. In January of 2001, he transferred to a Company B, 1st Battalion, 102nd Infantry Regiment, where he volunteered to deploy to Bosnia on a peacekeeping mission. While serving in Bosnia for 6 months, he earned the distinction of Soldier of the Rotation amongst over 10,000 multinational forces. Sergeant Del Greco returned from Bosnia in March of 2002. In April of 2003, Sergeant Del Greco volunteered to deploy again in support of Operation Noble Eagle 3 and was stationed at the United States Military Academy, West Point, New York. After 9 months at West Point, Sergeant Del Greco returned to Connecticut in December of 2003, only to immediately volunteer to deploy in support of Operation Iraqi Freedom 2. He transferred to Company C, 1st Battalion, 102nd Infantry in Bristol, Connecticut, as an automatic rifleman. Company C left Connecticut for Fort Hood, Texas on January 8, 2004, became part of the 39th Infantry Brigade, Arkansas, Army National Guard. The unit arrived in Kuwait of March 2004 and began patrolling in Baghdad, Iraq in April. Sergeant Del Greco died on April 9, 2004 at the age of 22 in Baghdad, Iraq, where an improvised explosive device and small arms fire struck his mounted patrol. He died 2 days after arriving in Baghdad and was the first member of the Connecticut National Guard to die in Iraq. His military awards include the Bronze Star, Purple Heart, Army Commendation Medal, Army Achievement Medal with Oak Leaf Cluster, Army Good Conduct Medal, Army Reserve Components Achievement Medal, National Defense Service Medal, Armed Forces Expeditionary Medal, Global War on Terrorism Expeditionary Medal, Global War on Terrorism Service Medal, Armed Forces Reserve Medal with M Device, Second Award, Non-Commissioned Officers Professional Development Ribbon, Army Service Ribbon, NATO Medal, and Combat Infantry Badge. When Sergeant Del Greco passed, he left behind his parents Felix M. Del Greco and Clara R. Del Greco, and his sister Alexa Del Greco. Sergeant Del Greco is buried at Mount St. Benedict Cemetery in Bloomfield, Connecticut.
Thank you, Kevin. At this time, I'll call Mr. Dave Moore for Amazing Grace. Oh, God bless America.
While the storm clouds gather far across the sea, let us all be grateful for a land that's free. Let us all be thankful for a land so fair, as we lift our voices in common prayer. God bless America, land that I love. Stand beside her and guide her through the night with the light from above. From the mountains to the prairies, to the oceans white with foam. God bless America, my home, sweet home. God bless America, my home, sweet home.
Thank you, Dave. Now I call on VFW 1926 Commander Lee Wilson to place the wreath at the memorial. Today we will have taps played by Simsbury High School. We will have Eli Byland and Ben Reynolds. In 1863, rifles were shot in the air to salute the soldiers who had given their lives to keep the United States together during the Civil War. And now, I will ask the commander of the rifle squad to salute the dead. At this time, I'd ask the color guard to retire the colors. As we close today, the high school band, under direction of Lisa Abel, will present a melody of service songs. The Masons will serve ice cream from the library lawn behind you. The Masons were instrumental in the contributions to the success of Memorial Day observation. Thank you all for participating in this ceremony. I hope you all enjoy the rest of your Memorial Day. Thank you, everyone, for coming, and this concludes the ceremony.
Funding for Simsbury Community Television is provided in part by contributions from viewers like you. Thank you.